Okay, I see we have quite a few people entering. All right, we've got a few minutes before noon, so we'll wait a little bit more before we start the session. Welcome, everyone. Perfect. I think these are the number of individuals that actually registered for the event. We will start right at noon. Thank you again so much. Welcome. All right. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining today's webinar. I do want to as well thank you for submitting your questions in advance when you registered initially. I do want to remind everyone that you are in a listen-only mode. And although we've collected some questions prior to this session beginning, certainly you do have the opportunity to submit additional questions. We would like for you to submit those using the question and answer, the Q&A function, if you do have additional questions. My name is Twanna. I'm the Enrollment Services Assistant here at Termity Faculty of Medicine. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend today's session. And before we begin, I would like to introduce Sophie Harding, who is the Associate Registrar in Admissions. Sophie, if you would mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your role in MD Admissions, and then we can begin. Thank you.
Thanks, Twanna. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here in this session. So my name is Sophie Harding. I am the Associate Registrar Admissions for the Faculty of Medicine, overseeing the MD program. So in my role, I oversee the program, so admissions questions and anything that you want to talk about or have questions around that, I'm happy to answer. And if I don't know, then I will definitely get back to you with an answer in the near future. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you this afternoon, and looking forward to answering your questions and clearing up anything that you want me to.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And I'll just get right into the first question that we have here. And it's one that I've seen often in the inbox as well, that I manage on a regular basis. A lot of students, after submitting their application, they've been sending these types of questions. So one I have here is, I've not heard much from the school since submitting my application. What's next in the process?
Yes, I mean, a lot of students, I know a lot of you are here with us today. You have these questions, you're waiting to hear back from us. Okay, so I'll let you know where we are right now in the admissions process. So we're sending out, currently we're in the process of sending out interview invitations. We send them out by email, and we send them out to the address that you've provided on your OMSAS application, so your Ontario Medical School application. If you need to update your email address, please do not do it through OMSAS. Okay, do not do it through the Enrollment Services Office, do it through OMSAS, and then OMSAS automatically sends us updates. So that's really important to keep in mind as you're going through. And also just a tidbit of information that a tip, I think that, make sure that that you add the MD applicants at utoronto.ca. I don't know if Twanna could put that in the in so that you can see it in the chat. So it's md.applicants@utoronto.ca, and make us a trusted sender, so that we want to make sure that you're getting our emails, that it's not going through your junk or your spam mail. Okay, so it's really important because we do send a lot of correspondence through email. If you are going to be receiving an invitation to come to an interview, and we sent you the invitation and we didn't hear from you, you didn't RSVP, we will follow up. So we will call you to make sure that you receive your interview invitation. So that's where we are right now. We're in the process of sending interview invitations out to our applicants. And once again, this is an ongoing process, right? So, the first interviews is early February, but then we'll also be continuously sending out interview invitations.
Thanks, Sophie. And, for reiterating that if they have not responded to an invitation, that the admissions team will be reaching out just to ensure that they haven't missed that. So thank you so much for reiterating that.
All right. No problem. Yeah.
All right. Another question I have here is, will I be updated on my application status? If so, when will that be?
So what's happening right now, that, as I said, we're in the interview invitation and refusals part of the process, right? So early refusals. And we do this on a rolling basis, okay? The file review process takes a while. It's very intricate, the way that we do file review for our applicants to the MD program. And so it does take several months, but if you're looking, keep looking in your inbox, keep seeing if you have any information from us. We're all in the process right now of interviewing or sending out some refusals as well. So look for that in your inbox.
Okay. And just to follow up to that last question, you mentioned that it is an intricate process, file review. Can you talk a little bit about how files are being reviewed?
Absolutely. Okay, so the file review process is, as I said, is very intricate. So we start off sort of, the first kind of screening is to make sure that you've met the GPA requirements, the minimum GPA requirements, you've met the MCAT requirements, your file is completed with all the different requirements. And that's sort of like the first screening that we do. Then we move on to the next screening, which is, we have raters that will help assess your file. And the way that we do that is that we have physicians, faculty members, residents, medical students, and members of our different communities that they engage in this rating process. And that's why it takes so long. Your file is being reviewed by several people with their expertise, and they then get back to us in terms of rating and letting us know where you stand. And that's how we do it. And that's why it is such an intricate process. It takes a long time. There's many people involved, but this is to ensure that our students are getting a fair and opportunity to showcase from their files. We have not one or two or three people, but much more looking at your file. Really important, so that you get a fair. This is such a competitive process. We want to make sure that you get the best opportunities in a fair way.
Great. So from what I'm hearing, it is a multi-step process.
Multi-step, absolutely.
Very involved, absolutely.
Very,
Okay,
very
great.
involved, absolutely.
Great. And as you mentioned, it's on an ongoing basis. So not
Yes.
here and now doesn't mean you won't hear something later.
Absolutely not. Not here and now does not mean we're at the early stages. This takes a long time, and so we're right in the thick of things. So just keep looking out to hear from us, but not by any stretch of the imagination can you say that it's over, because it's not.
Okay, great. This is another question that I'm getting quite a lot of emails for as
Okay.
well around verifiers and perhaps them having changed their contact information.
Okay.
What happens if an applicant's verifier, their contact information has changed?
Okay. Yeah. So if you have difficulty, we're going through your file, and if we have any difficulty at all contacting your verifier, we will reach out to you directly. Okay, we will get in contact with you and say, we're having trouble with your verifier. So you do not need to update information ahead of time. We will use the information that we have. If we have any problems at all, we will be contacting you directly.
So just to reassure them, they won't be missed. If there is information that is missing or we're not able to get a hold of someone, we're reaching out directly to applicants to confirm this information.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, great. Another question that I've seen a lot from the applicant pool this year is about just the interview process, what that looks like. Will the interview be virtual again this year? And if so, what can applicants expect in this particular format?
Yes. So, yep. I know that this is a huge, big question on everyone's mind. So, yes, all interviews will be held online this year. So there are no in-person interviews. Okay. So we adopted the virtual vMPI interview, which is a version of the traditional MPIs that we used to do in person. And we introduced this, of course, in 2020 in response to COVID and all the different university closures. So like the MPI, the vMPI also consists of 4 independent interview assessed by 4 different raters. Okay, so we're going to ask you to do 4 questions, and then you will be rated later on by different raters on your interview. This year, we are using the platform Kira Talent. That's what we're going to be using to conduct our online interviews. And it's really important that if you have been contacted, if we've invited you to an interview, we're going to be sending a lot of information. The first information would be, to let you know how this is going to be done. Each video response is 5 minutes in length. Kira Talent, the platform that we're using, will be contacting you, and there's a chance for you to practice. There's a chance for you to go in before your interview and go through and register and do some practice sessions to make sure also that your whatever computer or laptop you're using, it's technologically okay, that there's no issue. So all of that is done in the process and leading up to your interview. We will give you, for example, like a window opportunity over a few days for you to go in, do the practice, test your equipment, make sure you're good, and get you ready for your interview day. And the questions will be there. You'll be moving through the interviews. And I think it's really exciting, and we've been testing the system. It's going to work well. So, and you'll have the opportunity to get comfy as well. I hope that answers a lot of people's questions. Happy to talk some more about Kira Talent. I see that there's lots of questions coming up. So as soon as we're done, we'll give you an opportunity to if you want some more details about that as well.
Great. So from what I'm hearing, there will be some instruction to
Oh, yes.
candidates regarding this particular platform, so they're able to get a little bit more familiar with the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Right. And along that same vein, Sophie, what happens if an applicant is invited for an interview and are unable to make the date? What sort of accommodation is there?
So we are very we try, you know, and we do it on a case-by-case basis, but we try to accommodate as much as possible our students. Students might have, you know, religious obligations, or, you know, you might have a conflict with another med school interview day. And so before you know, we send out a link, a survey link, and ask our applicants if you have a conflict. And if once we send that information out, we want to invite you to an interview, you let us know right away that there's a conflict for the interview day. And then what we will do is we will contact you and try to reschedule as best as we can. We make every effort to accommodate applicants. We are limited by our scheduled interview days, but we do try to make sure that we are as accommodating as possible. So please let us know right away once you get that invitation, and if you're unable to make it.
Great. So if I'm hearing correctly, there is some flexibility within reason. So it's just dependent on the dates that are already set.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you will let us know in the survey that you know, we've invited you to interview and you can't make it, and we will then contact you.
All right, great, wonderful. So I do have a question here, and I think it's just about the interview format or process. Someone has asked if they're allowed to use paper and pencil to take notes during the thinking period before responding to that question in the interview.
Okay, so this is the way that the interview is going to be laid out. Like we have, so you're going to get a few minutes of prep, and like to, you know, read the question over, kind of collect your thoughts, and a couple of minutes, and then so I think that's a great idea if you want to take some notes, just to make sure that, you know, you're ready to go. And then once you hit the button to start, it counts down, then you should be able to do that.
Okay.
So yeah, take your notes. I do want to say one more thing, Twanna. So if you've been invited for an interview, okay, you will have 1 hour to answer the questions. We will give you sort of like a sense of how you should lay out your time, because timing is really important. If you don't want to use our suggestions, that's totally fine, but you have only that 1 hour to do the interview. We encourage that you also please use your time wisely, take breaks, like a 5-minute break between questions. If you don't want to, you're not forced, but just a recommendation. But so just, you know, go through when we send you all the information. It's really important. And you know, once you're in your interview, you know, remember to breathe. And you know, you have 5-minute breaks throughout, so take them, and so you can move through effectively.
Okay, so from what you're saying, Sophie, there is some sort of strategy around making sure that the allotted time is being used effectively, and you're providing that sort of direction as a suggestion.
Yes, we'll give you some direction on the allotted time, and you'll have plenty of time to do them, because each interview questions is 5 minutes, and you will have a couple of minutes prep time as well. And we will give you an idea of how you should use the time. If you don't want to use our suggestions, just, you know, keep in mind that you do have an opportunity to take a 5-minute break before the next question, so that you can kind of collect yourself. Take a washroom break, whatever.
Thank you. I have a question here around the invitations for interview. Someone wants to know if there are equal amount of interview invites in each of the 3 invite waves that, if you could answer that, if you're at liberty to answer.
If there's equal, no, there's not. The first interview day, we're only having 1 interview session. And so obviously there's less students being interviewed the first day. Now the second and the third day, it's equal. We have 2 slot times, and it's exactly the same in terms of people being invited.
Thank you. And does the file review score assess GPA competitively as part of the score, or is it just used as a cutoff?
Okay, so file review score is taking in consideration not just your academic, but also the score for, all the different aspects of your file. So it's academic and the non-academic. Okay, so it's a score that takes the majority of your file together without the interview. That's how we come up with the file review score.
Wonderful, thank you for that. I have a question here regarding the GPA and MCAT. One of the attendees here wants to know if an individual does not meet the GPA or MCAT cutoff, does the rest of their application still get reviewed, or will it automatically be refused? And if it is automatically refused, will these individuals get an emailed refusal earlier than those receiving invitations for interviews?
So, like I said in the beginning, the first point of us really looking at your file and doing the preliminary assessment is to make sure that you've met the GPA requirements, the minimum, and also the MCAT, and also your file is complete. You have all aspects, you've submitted all aspects of your file. And so it's really important in the beginning to have that. And if you haven't met the GPA requirements, you haven't even submitted, for example, let's say you haven't submitted an MCAT, it's really difficult for us to move forward with that. Each file would be looked at. So I don't want to say just flat out we will refuse you. We'll definitely review and see what's happening, what went wrong. In the case of a refusal, we will be sending you out an email. So you will be getting a letter from us to the email that you provided with OMSAS.
Sure. And just the second part of that, so would that refusal be sent during the wave of when you're sending interviews, or is that sent at a later date?
It will be. So refusals we're starting to send out refusals now, and we do that on a rolling basis.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right. I have a question here about competitive GPA and what's considered competitive to advance an application to review.
I think it's really important when you think about GPA for any med school, you have to understand, we say on our, the minimum GPA is, I think we say 3.6, right? For your file to be looked at. Now, you have to understand the class that comes in, we just want you to be able to meet the minimums, and then depending on the class that has applied, the people that have applied, that's how you sort of generate, what the threshold or what the cutoff is going to be. It's based on your applicant pool. So, students ask all the time, well, what's a competitive GPA? Well, being competitive is a very difficult answer, because it's not just your GPA, it's also your MCAT, but it's also your non-academic score as well that makes you competitive. So my suggestion to you is to make sure that you meet the GPA requirements, the minimum that's set out on our website, and make sure you complete, the minimum MCAT. And once you've done all of that, you really have to let the process happen. I can't tell you what the cutoff is going to be this year or next year. That's impossible, because we have to look at the pool of applicants that come in. Does that make sense?
Thank you. It does. Thank you so much. And just for students, we do have admission stats for previous years in
Mhm,
terms of the applications that have been submitted for prior cycles.
mhm,
So that would be a good place to look at as well in terms of what the competitive GPA was for those cycles. But as Sophie has mentioned, it's not something that we can say for this particular cycle because it is dependent on the applicant pool. So we're assessing
mhm.
that right now, and we would only be able to give an answer of what the competitive GPA was for this cycle once the cycle has concluded.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. I have this question here. Let me just read it off. I'm not quite sure. Do the waves of results span only one day, or is there still hope for us if we don't hear back the same day as a bunch of other people? On the flip side, if we hear back a few days after some others in a wave, does that mean that we have a lower score in that group?
Um, I assume, are you referring to, is this person referring to when we send out interview invitations and if you don't hear? Um, okay, so I'm assuming that you mean like you might know some people who've gotten interviews in the first interview, and you're thinking, oh, I haven't received an invitation yet. Maybe I'll receive it on the second or third. Is it based on GPA? No, it's not. It's not based on um, your the time, the date that you get your interview. If you've been invited, is not dependent on whether or not you're lower on the scale at all by any stretch of the imagination. So please, like, that's not how this works. Okay, so whether you get the interview the first day or the third day or the second day has no bearing on where you're standing in terms of your GPA or your whether or not you can get an offer at all. And so, we might, for example, have her interview day depending if you're international, if there are many different reasons why would give you a day. It's random. It has nothing to do with where you stand at all by any stretch of the imagination. Just so that we're clear.
Okay. So an invitation is not based on any particular ranking at all, or any
No,
ones being
no,
scoring higher or lower than anyone else. It's just
absolutely
that
not. Absolutely not.
it's just that that file was reviewed and
Exactly.
the review was completed and a decision made whether to invite or
Yes.
not invite that in. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you so much.
We have, yeah, and we have our, we have the first day, we have the second day, we have the third day. Whichever day you get that's the one you get. It has nothing to do with your standing.
Okay. I have a question here, and I think it's worth posing the question, even if you're not able to respond in great detail.
Mhm.
Are you able to provide a breakdown of how much each component of the application is worth?
No, I can't give you that breakdown. I'm sorry about that. No, I can't tell you all our secrets. But I won't. Like I said, all components. Your file is going to be reviewed. All aspects of your file is going to be reviewed, and it's going to be reviewed by different members of our community, whether it's a physician or a resident, a faculty member. And you have your academic score, you have your non-academic score. You're going to be scored on your item, your sketch, your essays, all of that. I can't give you the breakdown of the weighting right now. No.
Okay, and that's fair, but and I figured that would have been your response, but I just wanted to voice the question
Yeah.
because I can imagine that quite a few applicants might have had that concern as well.
Mhm.
Now, how I do have a question here about the sorry, the timing for the vMPI.
Mhm.
During the vMPI, does each 5-minute recording cover only one question,
Yes.
or are there follow-up questions?
No. So you have, so this is how it's going to work. Okay. You're going to get your question. Okay. And if there's a part A or part B to that question, you're going to get your question and you will have, I think it's 3 minutes for you to get, sort of like read it, maybe jot down some notes of where you want to go with the question. You get 5 minutes to answer that question. Okay. Once you start recording for that question, you can't stop. You have to finish it and then move on to the next. Okay. So that's really important. All right. You got 5 minutes to answer the question and then you'll move on to the second question. And then the third and then the fourth. So there are different stations, right? And each question is going to be looking at different competencies. Okay.
Great. So 8 minutes is the suggested allotment in terms of time to be spent on each question.
Yeah, and you have the countdown as well as you're doing it. Like, so you'll see the question come up and you'll see it starts to count down as you're reading and sort of kind of figuring out where you want to go with this question. And then you go right into answering and it's going to be recorded. And then you either take a 5-minute break to kind of put yourself together and move on to the next one. If you don't want to take a break, you can just move on to the next question.
Thank you, Sophie. I have a question here for, I think, maybe MD, PhD applicants, if they're also on this call. Do MD, PhD invites also come out in different waves?
Yes. So MD, PhD is, you're going to get your, you're going to get your invitation to the MD portion. And once you do that, there's also going to be some students are going to be invited to a live portion as well, not in person, but live. So there's 2 aspects to the MD, PhD interviews. You will be hearing from us and you'll be getting all of these invitations and you'll also be getting follow-ups and let us know if you're, the same thing applies. If you can't make it, if there's a conflict, you want to know. And, once you go through the first part of the interview, which is the MD portion, then you'll get an invitation. If you pass that, and if they want to move on with you to the next set, you'll get another invitation to come back. And this time it will be live.
Okay.
And all of that,
that's a separate, sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
And all of that information will be conveyed to you through email.
Okay, perfect. So there is a separate interview process for the MD portion. And if you're an MD, PhD applicant, then there's an additional interview process that you would be invited to if you were successful, correct?
Yes. So there's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I have another question here. It might be the last, depending on if you're able to give us a little bit more time. But how does the U of T team guarantee equity of assessment across each wave? Given the different sizes of the waves, is the first wave more competitive by virtue of being smaller?
No, once again, like I really, you need to understand when you say wave, like every interview, if you've been invited to an interview, you will be assessed by different raters, okay? The exact same way. So we're not gonna make a decision until everything is finished, okay, to all the interviews. One wave, it does not weigh more than the second interview that weighs more than the third, okay? That's not the way that we operate at all. These are just 3 different dates. We have a number of students that we're interviewing and they are spread out over 3 days. And if we need another day, depending on conflicts, we'll have another day. But it has nothing to do with like anything to do with, where you stand, if you're going to get offers before that person. That's not how we operate. You will be assessed fairly. You will be rated fairly in the exact same way with the same amount of raters. We will put it back into the, and look at your overall scoring for your whole entire, your whole entire file, including the interview. And there'll be discussions and admissions meetings to choose our class coming in. So, you know, it is absolutely fair and equitable. Doesn't matter what day you get your interview.
And thank you so much for providing some clarification on that for me, Sophie. I have a question here, and it's a follow-up to something that you've addressed already. Someone had asked about jotted down notes during the interview process. Someone else wants to know if they will be allowed to refer to those notes during the recording.
I think that, you know, it's good to jot down notes or as you're thinking through, because you do have a few minutes prep time. And I think as you're speaking, you know, we want to see we want you to showcase yourself, you know, which is really hard to see your personality shine through on camera. But I mean, if you want to like sort of glance down at your notes to kind of see what you were thinking and you know, points that you want to make sure, like, you know, do what you need to do to convey and do the best possible interview you can do. Okay. You won't have a lot of time. You'll have a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes to sort of absorb and kind of think through the points you want to make. And if you want to jot that down, that's fine. And then, you know, referring to it as you go through so you don't forget anything, I think is also a good idea. Okay. And I do have a question here about the timelines for the interviews. I know we've got a few dates, and I'm going to just share a blog with that information. But were there any additional nuggets of information that you wanted to share with the attendees today? Just that, you know, I just wanted, there's a question here. Are the interview questions personalized or generic? Okay, sure. The questions are going to be, each station, the question is different, obviously, right? Because each station, we're looking at different competencies. So for the first, you know, everybody will get the same question. The next interview though, for example, you know, you're not going to be able to, you know, the people who are being interviewed this on a later date are not going to have the exact same questions, of course not, because we, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, everybody's is being treated fairly, and they have the same opportunities. So it's not personalized per person, it's personalized, I would say, per interview day. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's unique per interview day. Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that. Now, I know we allotted half an hour for today's session, but did you have any additional tips that you wanted to provide to the attendees today? So so for the people who are here that have been invited to an interview, or, you know, if you do get an invitation for an interview in the future, what I really encourage you to do, it's really important, is that use the testing and the practice time effectively, okay? Do not wait till the day of your interview before you go in to make sure that you check your technological sound, everything is good, that your sound works, you're using the right, you know, your computer or your laptop is working perfectly, that you've done the practice questions, that you've, you know, registered, that you've done all of that. It's really important. Don't do it the day of, okay? Do it at least beforehand, so that, you know, you don't run into any issues the day of your interview, because the last thing you want is to sign on and realize, oh, I'm using a tablet. Well, if you had done the practice session, you know that you can't use a tablet, right? You need to use a laptop or a computer or a desktop, right? So that's one tidbit that I would just say. So if you do get an invitation, please use a practice session to get yourself situated. It'll make your interview a lot smoother and make you feel a lot more in control and better as you go through this process. And good luck and have fun and showcase your personality. If you have made it through that stage where you have gotten an interview invitation, know that you are exceptional and you are amazing. So just showcase that to us in the interview as much as you can. Well, I think you're. Yeah.
Yes, I just realized. Thank you so much for those additional tips, Sophie. And just in the interest of time and respect for everyone's time here, I will be wrapping up today's session. I do want to again say thank you all students for attending. Hopefully you've gotten some of your questions answered, the majority I should suppose. I've dropped the general email into the chat box. If you do have additional questions, you can certainly submit them there. If it's more specific to your situation, they will be forwarded to the admissions team where Sophie and her colleagues will get back to you with a response if they are able to. And again, thank you so much again for your time, and we hope to chat with you again soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Thanks. Take care.